Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian, and today we have a topic that goes well beyond Crusader Kings 3, a topic that I think is relevant to everybody in the grand strategy niche, and indeed something that we ought to talk about, because it is just so vital that we really exchange our thoughts, that we have a conversation about the question of pricing, and what that means as a customer, where the general trends are going, where we came from, and what it all means. I would like to at least try to decipher this a bit. I will read every single comment under the video, so I would urge you indeed, if you have thoughts that run counter or are in agreement with anything that I say, leave a comment, make your case, let me know about it, let others know about it. I would just urge you, and I insist on this, I would just urge you to indeed stay civil if you are just randomly insulting people, if you're inflammatory, if you start random insults and fights. Come on, you know, just take a walk instead. Don't leave that comment, because I guarantee you I will simply ban you. I have always been very, very happy with the community around this channel when it comes to the ability to actually talk through things and discuss things, so I urge you to indeed to adhere to this principle even going forward here. And with that being said, let's just jump in and actually explore what is so controversial that I have to give out this verbal, basically reminder to indeed stay civil. Let's take a look. As of September 13, we will be altering the prices of our flavor packs, Northern Lords and Fate of Iberia, to reflect the overall value of this kind of content moving forward. This means that the current price point of these two products will increase from $6.99 to $12.99, 86% roughly. This of course is changed equivalent to the regional pricing in your area and may vary. This change will also be reflected in future flavor packs whose cost will be more in line with this price point. The price change will not affect the price of the base game, Royal Court or the Royal Edition. Those prices will remain unaffected. Keep that in mind. Very important to me personally that is a decision that they made. If you're already a holder of the Royal Edition or Expansion Pack 1, you're all set and nothing will change for you and your versions of the game. The price of Northern Lords and Fate of Iberia will not increase until September 13, so we recommend getting your copies at the original price point of $6.99 before the change occurs. So we're going from $6.99 to $12.99. This is a development that I have noticed, I read all this thread as well, that has many people think that it is very surprising. To me, it's not at all surprising, doesn't make it justified or unjustified, but fundamentally it is something that the company has talked for quite a while about, and I think that now is following suit. I didn't see it go from $6.99 to $12.99, but that is where we are. Now, before we talk about the actual absolute value, the relative increase here, before we do that and then move on even further, let's take a look at the second post here. Howdy all. These changes are being made to keep up our quality level with the increase on all flavor packs and related content. Basically what they're saying here is that this, in their opinion, the flavor packs that are already out and the flavor packs that are to follow are undervalued with $6.99 and are valued correctly with $12.99. That is their personal, or well, not their personal, that is their company view that is the case. Okay, this is basically the reasoning here. It is not elaborated in an excessive manner here. In my opinion, it's too short. I think it would be better had they at least given more words. Not that it, ultimately there will always be people that will be angry and that will be upset about this because everybody has different price thresholds, but on a core level, I think that this is the reasoning, they have given it at the very least, and now we can work with it, we can think about that. So keep that in mind. They're increasing it because on a very basic level, they are of the opinion that $6.99 is inadequate of a value compared to $12.99. That is the company point of view. This will not change the price of Royal Court, large DLCs, expansion passes, base game, or Royal Edition. Keep that in mind. The fact that the Royal Edition doesn't change, for example, that the expansion passes don't change their prices, keep that in mind. It's very important if we put this into the context of the overall pricing model that, for example, CK3 and probably Victoria 3 are employing. Also, we are hoping to get another expansion pass going in the future. No promises. But if so, that will definitely be the way to go for future content. This also is not impacting the dev team directly, as they're still hard at work on ever more exciting content and more in-depth pieces of DLC. Right, so these are the two statements, and there is something here that I want to highlight, and that is the question of the price itself, right? Is Northern Lords worth $6.99? Is Northern Lords worth $12.99? Is Fate of Iberia worth $6.99, and is it worth $12.99? These are things where we have one answer on one side, and 1 million answers on the other side. I mean here that, in the company point of view, they clearly believe that $12.99 is an adequate pricing point. On the other side, I personally, for example, believe that Northern Lords definitely worth $6.99. $12.99, I personally don't believe so. Fate of Iberia, $6.99, I thought was a massive steal. $12.99, maybe a bit high, maybe adequate, somewhere around that ballpark. I hope that you're noticing. What I'm trying to basically express here is that discussion of the subjective value of the DLC will never lead to a situation where customers fundamentally can agree on with one another on an objective level. Because we're talking about a situation where everybody has different means and everybody views the value differently. I bought the Royal Edition, so I didn't pay $6.99 either. I paid a reduced version of this. I believe altogether you would pay $45 for the existing DLC, right? 45 I think is what it is with the current prices. With the Royal Edition, I think you pay 25 total, because the base game is 50 and you pay 75 for the Royal Edition, so you're at 25, meaning all the 3 DLC that are out right now are $25, right? So for me, it's just, I bought the Royal Edition. I was somebody that said I will purchase these DLC either way, so I might as well do it at a discount. But my point ultimately, when it comes to the pricing point, is that being upset by the price being higher now and saying this is too high for me and I will not purchase this is absolutely valid. I want to stress this. I believe that if you look at a price and say this isn't right, I do not want to pay this, I think it's too high, do not pay it. Do not purchase this, right? Wait for a sale. Buy a bundle if that bundle, you know, for example, the Humble Bundle had an extreme EU4 sale, but I hope you know where I'm coming from there. If, on the other hand, somebody, you know, let's say you're upset by the price, which, again, completely valid, and somebody else isn't upset by the price, that is also a completely valid point of view. They may say, for example, I get X hours out of this, and that is how I value this. And with that in mind, I value it enough. It means it's not that intense for me. $12.99, you know, as a working adult for me personally, is also not a number that I will be very passionate about. But that is my personal case. It does not invalidate anybody else's case. What is important here? If you make this choice, whether you were to buy any future DLC, please do indeed make a rational decision here. This is very, very important to me. But be aware that the price point is something that you should express, whether it's too high or too low for you, because that is the active way that you have to express this, right? But other people will feel differently about it. That is the way the world works. That is the way price point setting works. I want to push this aside, because I don't think that there is an objective measurement of value. I know that many people will disagree when I say Fate of Iberia was, you know, is more than worth for $6.99, for example. I know that there are differences in perception there, and that is something I think that we have to be aware of, especially when we discuss this, as there is no objective measurement. What is more important to me here is the notion that the prices of the DLC are going up, and the bundles remain the same. Now, you could say, don't say that, they're going to raise the prices of the bundles and make it worse, right? I understand that. But I want to point something out here, because this is a difference and a trend that I was worried about quite a while ago when it comes to pricing that we should discuss. First, let's move on to this page right here. I want to just highlight that the changes and the considerations that they are now doing in terms of the long-term support model and DLCs is not something new. This is from 2022, February 22nd. It was when, you know, Paradox is inside of the EU, of course, they're based in Stockholm, and with that they are subject to the EU rules when it comes to publicly listed companies. The consequence of this is that they have to, every quarter, give a report on where the company is, what is happening, what they're doing, obviously most of the time, and this is just to be expected. I don't think this is a positive or a negative. It's a lot of business talk, it's a lot of like fairly vague statements, because obviously you do this in a way that satisfies the requirements, but you are not gonna say, okay, we have these eight untitled games and they're gonna come, right? No, you're gonna say things in a business relevant way. And a part of this that they said, which is why I wasn't surprised by the price increase to begin with, they were talking about that they perceive the value of DLCs differently from how they are currently priced at the time. In general, you can say from our perspective that our DLCs have been priced lower than many of our peers have, so we might adjust our prices upwards. Not all of our DLC are going to be priced at 30 in the future, no, but you might expect an upwards trend in pricing. I remembered this, and I believe that they actually talked about this even before this live stream, but I remembered this, and I said to myself, we're going to be seeing an increase. I personally was expecting flavor packs $9.99 maybe, $12.99 is quite the increase, and that is where something started like ticking in my head, where I was like, okay, wait a minute, but that's a bit more. Why is that, right? What I mean to say here is fundamentally that this price increase was communicated quite a while back, doesn't justify it or unjustify it. Again, that's a personal measurement to begin with, but it puts you in a position where they were discussing this previously, and they clearly are of this opinion. Again, this further just explains where the company point of view comes from. What I want to address here actually is that now some people, and I've seen this argument over and over again, and it's one of the most ridiculous arguments, and it's rude to say it's ridiculous, but I find it ridiculous because it has no standing outside of sounding good. One of the most ridiculous arguments that I've seen when it comes to explaining this price hike is that Paradox is a public company, right? So it's a company that is stock traded. They are listed on the Swedish stock market, and they're in a position where they have to satisfy shareholders. This is, of course, true. It's not entirely correct because the majority, I believe it's over 50% anyway, is owned by just 2 people that were very early on involved in Paradox. I mean, Fred Westers, who doesn't know that Fred Westers, went into the company when it was tiny, when it was meant to be actually shut down as Paradox Entertainment. So, like, not really actually much change when it comes to the possession, right, of the company. But more importantly, I wanna highlight something, and I'm doing this in general, not just related to Paradox. Public companies exist to make profit, right? Private companies exist to make profit. There's no difference. Neither is your friend. Both want to sell you goods and services, and you can then decide whether you want to buy these goods and services. The reality is that it is ridiculous to me to suggest that bad pricing changes, that one believes to be bad anyway, started in 2016, when there's the years before that of CK2 DLC where faces were sold, where individual teeny tiny changes were sold, because that was the first support model that Paradox developed, right? I found that model that started in 2012 and went on until around 2016, I think, 2017. I believe that model to be the worst era of Paradox long-term support models, and that is a model born in the private company of Paradox Interactive. What I'm trying to say is, this price hike and any shortcomings of the company, please do not go, this is all the fault of the stock market, okay? Companies fundamentally want to make money, okay? They go further. Obviously, there's always a reputational cost associated with it that, goes beyond this, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, please don't present that argument in the comments. It's not a good argument, trust me. Like, it's just not very good. The point here is, they have been considering this for quite some time now, and the move that now has been made, and this is what I actually want to discuss, where I am wary of it, where I'm that the price itself not that bothersome to me, but the tendency that I'm seeing here is bothersome, and that is the following. Now, what I would like to talk about is the question of what does this mean for the overall long-term support and pricing model? Why did they increase this? Because obviously certain people will not purchase DLCs at $12.99. This is a given, right? What you have in pricing models are always different offers. Every video game does this. Some do it more predatory than others, but fundamentally different versions of the video game, different bundles that you can get together that are basically bulk and will make it cheaper for you. Very, very normal stuff to a certain degree, right? CK3 does this as well. The normal game, $50. We're talking in euro here, of course. I don't know any other currency prices. The Royal Edition, that includes the Flavour Pack, and the expansion, $74.99. If you buy the game and the 2 Flavour Packs and the expansion separately, you will be paying, I should say, €94, right? If you buy all of them separately. That is with the old prices. With the new prices, you would be buying, what, it's $10 more, €104, roughly, right? The issue that I see here is that the DLC DLC price changes, in my opinion, they're not really meant to facilitate a greater income through individual DLC purchases. I believe they are fundamentally meant to incentivize purchasing the Season Pass and purchasing the Royal Edition. Because the monetary proposition of the Royal Edition, and this is what I was arguing at the very start of the CK3's life cycle when I said I bought the Royal Edition because I know I will buy the DLC and it's just the cheapest, right? I can choose between back then $94 and $74 for the whole package. Now with raising the price but not raising the Royal Edition and the expansion pass, which, I mean, let's hope that, it's good if they don't raise it, but I'm saying the incentive here is, yes, DLC sales will go down as fewer people will be willing to pay $12.99. That's just true statistically speaking, but the expansion pass will now be more attractive because there is a higher incentive, and let me open Paint here. There's a higher incentive to purchase it. Right now, let's just stick with the expansion pass here. It's $34, and that's a beautiful 3 right there. And if you buy it all separately, it's $44, right? You save $10. That's a pretty good save. If you know what you want, if you know those DLCs, those are the ones that you want, nice, you save $10, right? If you buy the Royal Edition, you come even cheaper, of course, because for the Royal Edition, the actual price here is 25 bucks. If we you know, 75 bucks for the Royal Edition, 50 for the game means 25 left over. 25, that's a great deal for 3 DLC, right? Great deal. Now what happened now is the 44 value is no longer true. The 44 value will be going away in September. And all of a sudden, we will be looking at a 54 value. What this means is, yes, fewer people will buy the individual DLCs because they just became less attractive in price point. But all of a sudden, this 34, this 25 looks significantly better, right? Because you save significantly more money now. Instead of saving 10 with the expansion pass, and instead of saving 20 with buying the Royal Edition straight up, you're now looking at a saving of 20 and 30, right? Very significant indeed. And I think this is something to point out, because in itself, bundle deals are something that happens every single day. It's something that happens in every video game. It's something that happens in physical goods, you know, very, very normal. But the problem that I have with this, and the issue that I take here, is that a negative incentive was added, which means the alternative is more expensive, so it's negative not to take this deal of the expansion pass of the Royal Edition. But the Royal Edition and the expansion pass, as they were in the initial phase, so the first 3 DLC, were effectively cats in bags. I personally am happy with the Royal Court. I'm happy with Fate of Iberia. I'm happy with Northern Lords. They are good content that I enjoy. But other people might not. And the problem here is, if the pricing difference between buying the cats in the bags and buying the DLC as they come out is too big, it's essentially an incentive to take away the choice of whether a player, a customer, actually wants that content. What I mean is, if you don't play in Iberia ever, let's just assume this for sake of argument. Fate of Iberia is a waste for you. Yes, you will enjoy the struggle mechanic ultimately at some point in mods, but the actual DLC, not for you. It's just not for you. But since you saved, since you would have spent potentially more than 30 bucks extra had you not bought the pass, not bought the Royal Edition, all of a sudden, you buy that cat in the bag. Yes, it could be a dud. It could be Iberia and you never play there. Or it could be, I don't know, you know, let's say India and you play there all the time. My point here is that if the next expansion pass, if there is one, which I wish we had like any information whatsoever, but if the next expansion pass also just says 2 flavor packs, 1 expansion, and it doesn't give even a theme of what it is, I am very frustrated and unhappy with that practice. Because at that point, we're looking at a situation where a negative incentive, which means the higher individual DLC price, was deliberately created to make it so that you will buy the cat in the bag. I understand, mathematically speaking, that Paradox views this as a calculation where you say DLC sales will go down, but overall expansion purchases will go up, right? Because it's even more incentivized now with the opportunity cost here. But the communication of what content you actually get with the expansion pass is inadequate at best. It's, from my point of view, the much more worrying direction than the actual DLC price hike. They basically talked about adding, you know, a price point to the DLC for ages now. It's not surprising to me at all. It might be surprising to many others, but I'm looking at this from a perspective where it's like, okay, that makes sense. But right now, we are 2 years into the post-release development cycle. Well, will be on the 1st of September. And I am very understanding that the pandemic has created a situation that was very difficult for development teams all over the world. I mean, just look at the video games industry in general, I think, right now. But the marketing communication, if we do not get, and this is, you know, let's say they announce a second expansion pass and it actually discusses, even if it's vaguely, where these features will be set. If we don't get that, then we essentially just got given an extra tax. That is my problem, right? If we have certainty, if we know, okay, it will be set in regions, it will be a topic that I'm interested in, any sort of roadmap, which we don't have, which is very frustrating for me, believe me. But if we don't have any of this, I would be incredibly unhappy with this strategy done by Paradox. I understand that people buying expansion passes means financial planning security for the CK3 team, because they know that fundamentally there will be people that have an interest in X and Y feature and DLC. But if the expansion pass, and you can't even see it now anymore, I suppose, but, you know, none of this was something that we knew about when I purchased the Royal Edition. When I purchased these DLCs practically. We were not told. Back in the day, I chose the Royal Edition just because it was cheaper anyway, but now a deliberate move has been made to make the expansion pass even more incentivized, because otherwise you will pay much more money. And unless they give us a general tidbit of what they are doing and what is coming, and I'm not talking about very specific things, these are in development things, I think it's adequate that you can't say it's going to have this exact feature, because you don't know what happens in development. Development, you know, it's a creative branch, I understand that. But I would like you, as a viewer, as a customer, to consider that unless they give us details on what will be in the expansion, we basically just got there to buy 3 cats in a bag, or whatever, how many cats may be in that DLC pass, right? And I am not at peace with that, in particular, if we have a DLC situation where the price was increased just to make this pass that is 3 cats in a bag more attractive. I think communication here is key, and I would hope that Crusader Kings 3, after 2 difficult years, in many ways, I think, would see communication that is more open about what players can expect. I don't mean promising, I don't mean, you know, like in the sense where it's like, this exact thing will be in. I mean information that players can work with to make an informed buying decision. I am not a fan of buying cats in a bag. I don't buy early access games. I think you can get away with a season pass where you don't explain what is in it exactly if it's like Fallout 4, because it's going to be 2 DLC, man. It's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be long-term support. But these are long-term support cases. And I think that it's important that players know what they are buying when they're buying it. I think the notion of simply negatively incentivizing the expansion pass is bad, and we need positive incentives to make it worthwhile any customer's time. As of right now, with the expectation that the expansion pass itself would be like the first one, where it doesn't announce which content it is inside of the expansion pass, I could not recommend it. I think I would recommend against it. I would say wait it out, because you have no idea what is coming. I personally, you know, for me, again, it comes down to I would probably always buy it, but because I just play the DLC as is. But I think there are people out there that would be pushed towards buying a bag and a cat in a bag, and I'm not a fan of that. I think, I hope that whenever we hear of a new expansion pass, that there's more transparency. Otherwise, you'll hear from me. You'll hear me discuss it here, right? That is my angle on this. I think the more worrisome part is not the price hike, but rather that the price hike is utilized as a negative incentive for the expansion pass, and that in the past, the expansion passes were mystery boxes. You know, you bought them, you hope something would come along that you would like, and that's all you could do. Yeah, that is what my personal take on this is. Let me know what you think. Again, very, very important for me. I will read it all, of course. Let me know what you think in particular about the worries about what this means for the expansion pass model and for building incentives, because rather than having, you know, explicit features and such, we right now only have a negative incentive, and I think that is not adequate. Yeah, that's it from me. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you later. Alligator.